Delegation time. Come on. You challenged me, Paula. You said.
I did. Good morning. Welcome to the Uncertainty Brief. My name is Paula Scaper. I'm your host, and this is my co-host.
Susan Goebel. How are you?
And Susan, maybe.
I bet everybody can figure out what we're going to talk about.
I wonder what. So the theme of today is we are talking all things leadership, and leadership specific to your strategic planning for Q4. And we're going to talk today about one of Susan's and my favorite strategies for Q4 planning for leaders, and that is
delegation. I'm not singing the rest of the song. You don't want to hear me sing. Let's be clear.
It's Monday, folks. It's Monday. So, Susan, tell me, when it comes to delegation, all your clients rock at it from day one, right?
Oh, totally. And if you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic. But they all come in with the problem of this. I am so busy and so overwhelmed, and my team is firefighting, and I am firefighting. How am I going to buy back my time so that I can do what I really wanted to do when I started the business?
Question for you. How are you, or no, when you started your business, how were you at delegation?
Terrible.
Me too. I sucked at it.
Can I tell you, I'm better, but I'm not perfect at it because I'm quicker and I know what I need to do. And I do exactly what all my clients do. And I say, but if it would just, I can just do this in 5 seconds. But you know what? That's not scalable. It's not something that scales appropriately if I'm doing it. If I take that 5 seconds and I record it, I systematize it, I make it an SOP, I have somebody in the team I can give it to the next time, now I have built a business. Not just a job. What about you, Paula?
Yeah, same deal.
It's hard. It is. I mean, let's be honest. As leaders, it doesn't matter whether you're CEO, heads of department, whatever it is, you have a team reporting to you. Delegating, sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely one of the most difficult things to do in your business is delegate, right? Especially when you're a small team. I think, to be fair, when you're part of a larger team, and by larger team, I mean you're moving into enterprise territory, right? You've got formal layers of structure and organizational hierarchy in the business. You come into those roles, even the leadership roles, and there's a certain amount of delegation that's being predefined for you, right? You come into a leadership role from a larger company. You're often coming from outside the company, or you're moving up from within. And so people have responsibilities and authorities, and it's all pretty structured. In a smaller company, a small enterprise company, you're growing, but you're still sub a couple of hundred people. The leadership is often still, or I'm going to call it organic leadership. The people that have joined you in your company, the people that have risen through the ranks in your company, they're very passionate about the work, and they are experts at almost every step of the ladder below them.
It's interesting. It's not actually what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to talk about one of the challenges I see a lot with my clients, which is, when we start and we see the evolution from, a solopreneur or a technician who's amazing at some subject matter expertise. They start the company, they grow it up, they've got product market fit, they've got traction. But what they do first is that they hire somebody who's a generalist like them. It's usually, my brother's wife, my next door neighbor, whoever it was, to help me out because I just need the help. And so when you grow a little bit more, now you need people who are experts at specific roles.
Yeah. And you don't have them.
And because, my friend, my neighbor, my colleague from that other company, they don't have the expertise that you really need when you go to the next level. And it doesn't matter how passionate they are. sometimes, and I know we're going to get into an area here where we don't want to dive too deep, but it's about the right fit, and the right fit doesn't mean that it's a bad person. It's just the right fit for the organization's needs and requirements. Because let's be clear, that is why they're there, right? That's why us as owners are paying them, is because they have the skill set that we need.
Yeah, totally 100%. 100%.
Do you know what else is interesting when we talk about delegation?
What's that?
Meetings.
Okay.
Meeting fatigue. Bad meetings. Meetings suck.
Mm.
They're horrible. Series that Bill Gates does 6-minute meetings. That's tough. But I can imagine everybody wants a piece of his time.
I'm
right?
Irish. The concept of a 6-minute meeting is actually trauma inducing for me.
Okay. It's interesting though, because when you think about meetings usually have an objective, right?
Mhm.
And when you have meetings, everybody on the team seems to want to be invited to the meeting. They don't all show
Mhm.
up, and they're really not all necessary from we got to get the
Uh-huh.
objective of the meeting done. But then you also look at it in terms of the question about busy versus business. So busyness
Right.
versus business. And when you're talking delegation, you're talking about sucking somebody's time.
Yeah.
Do I actually need this to even be a meeting, or can it be an asynchronous email or message or whatever if I just chunk it down little bit by little bit? Sometimes they need to be meetings. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes your meetings really only do need to be 3 minutes. I'm so sorry for your Irish
My trauma.
ancestry
Okay.
for that.
So for me, if it can be a 3-minute meeting, it's usually 2 people.
Yeah.
And it's a quick conversation.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be a meeting. Why take the time to schedule the meeting? Book it in your calendar. I mean, this is all time, right? Why not just walk past the door, knock on the door and say, hey, can I grab 3 minutes of your time sometime today, and do that and have a conversation?
And it depends what it is. If you really truly only need 3 minutes of somebody's time and they don't need prep for it and they have the time available, great. Sometimes those 3-minute meetings do need to be 3 minutes, but somebody needs 24 hours notice to be properly prepped, ready, prepared, and have their thinking time that they needed in advance, which means that somebody took the time to prep them, right? Hey, here's the issues, here's the things you need to know. And then you go into the people who knock on the door. Hey, have you got a minute? Ooh,
Mm.
right? When you talk about delegation, because we're coming back to the theme of the day again, delegation also means teaching and mentoring those people who report to you how to think on their own and come in and have that conversation with you. If you teach them to do their own research, if you empower them with the tools, the knowledge, the expertise, the knowledge banks, whatever it is, then half the time, by the time they get done answering the questions that you're going to want to ask them, they probably already have the answer. And it never even needed to be a meeting. It just needed to be more
Right.
thinking time by them. But if you don't teach them, they'll never learn.
You bring that I was thinking that actually as you started talking. I was thinking of a client that I worked with a couple of years back, and I was working with, they were setting up their marketing department, first time that they had a formal marketing function in a company. And I was working with their marketing lead, right? Their sole marketing employee. I'm mentoring them to step into the role of leading the marketing function. And what I discovered was happening. So we would have a conversation in the meeting, and we would work out, some plans, some ideas for things we wanted to do. And I would send them away with homework. Okay, so here's what I want you to figure out, and here's what I want you to do. And I want you to come to our next conversation next week. And I want you to be prepared with this information so that we can go through it. In the week between our coaching call, the individual would get the information I needed. And how they would do it is they would go to their boss, the owner of the company, and say to their boss, I have this great idea. Here's what I think we should be doing in the marketing. Now, the boss is thinking they've got a rock star because they're proactive, they've got ideas. But I'm stuck on. And then they would wait, and the boss would swoop in and do all the work like literally do all the work.
Mm.
And they would come back and I would get in the meeting. Oh yeah, I talked to, my boss and here's how we've decided we're going to proceed with it. And I was like, okay. It literally got to the point where I had to do more work with the owner of the company to get them to stop doing this than with the person, because they had found a way of getting things done that was very effective. And it was very effective. But what was being undercut in the process was their ability to think strategically for themselves and consider all the issues, because they were outsourcing that up the chain. And so that actually ended up extending that contract by about 4 months,
Oh my gosh.
because the biggest issue was not that all the systems weren't in place. They were in place. The plans were in place. Everything was rocking. Everything was going well. However, the person was playing mom against dad, like your kids do, right? Playing
Mhm.
mom against dad. And so they were getting off on not completing the work that the boss felt wasn't the most urgent thing for them. And they were also getting their boss to do the work, the work that they didn't want to do. And so what was happening was they weren't building the thinking skills. They also weren't doing the analytics and the reporting, which is another huge thing, I think, when it comes to leadership, is that we have a habit of thinking that the analysis, the metrics, the reporting can be done later. Because, I've got this urgent fire with a client. I need you to deal with it. It's okay if you don't get the monthly reports done this week. And then next week,
Mm.
there's another fire. And it's okay if you don't get the monthly reports done this week. And this goes on for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now you've got 2 sets of monthly reports, one that's a month overdue and one that's due. Oh, you know what? We don't have last month to compare it to. It's okay. Month 3, you take a look at your Google ad spend. Let's pick on marketing, right? You take a look at your Google ad spend and you're like, we're not getting ROI on this. Why didn't you know? Why didn't I know? I wonder, right? And so I think the risk is and I've been guilty. Like I've been guilty. The risk is it's easy to push reporting down the road because the data is always going to be there for us to look at. But the data is only relevant for a short window of time.
Mm.
And if you don't look at it, you can't act on it. And if you don't act on it, you can't solve the problems. And if you don't solve the problems, you're going to have bigger, it's this kind of waterfall. So it's the little seed that never feels like the world is going to crash, because it won't crash today. But you might actually be putting cracks in the foundation that are going to cause a very big crash tomorrow.
And it truly is. I can attest to
Yeah.
exactly what you just said. From an ops standpoint, even a finance standpoint, you can put a dashboard together, you can do all those things, but if it is responsible for somebody who gets the freedom to choose, do I populate the dashboard or not? Oftentimes you just can't see where you need to go. Can't make good quality decisions because the data just isn't there. So, I mean, good point. It happens in every department. Every department.
Yeah.
I think that was a great segue into what's going to be fun about tomorrow's live stream.
Oh, yes. Now, what would that be, Susan?
Whoa, we are going to have a conversation about everybody's recently favorite topic, AI and automation. Because if you can pull the data automatically, then it is
Oh, yeah.
always going to be there. Yay!
Oh, yes. Dashboard's my favorite thing. Absolutely my favorite thing. But we will save that for tomorrow. So for
Yes.
today, let's assume they've already seen tomorrow's live stream and you've got your dashboards all built. And so as an owner, you're coming in on Monday morning, starting the fresh week. What's the first thing you need to make sure that you have your finger on the pulse of as you kickstart your week?
I have 2 answers for this, and I look at them in sequence. Last week, everybody heard from me about the money honey. So the first thing I do is I go and I deal with the money honey because I need to make sure that I know and I have a pulse on the finances. Right? Once that's underdone, it's taken and check your box, all is good, then I can go to my metrics. Because if you actually have the ability, you've got leading indicators and lagging indicators, and we can talk all day about this. And I know that's part of what we're going to discuss in our Q4 strategy planning sessions. It's really important to know, and marketing in particular has great leading indicators, right? I mean, I talk about it with my clients in this respect. So if I know if I need 2 clients this month and I know that I have a 20% close rate, I need to have at least 10 proposals go out, and I know there's 15 conversations to get to those 10 proposals, and it continues to go back up the chain, then your leading indicator becomes the marketing pieces where you go, okay, did we actually get what we needed to get in the sales pipeline so that we can get through, so that we can actually close those clients? And if this is off, this is going to be affected, right? It's all the way through. And so you really need to have those metrics and be looking at them in order to make good quality strategic decisions. And you know what everybody says to that, Paula?
What?
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, and
when was the last time you looked at your metrics?
Yeah.
Have you created a dashboard that you look at on a regular basis? No. And and then they're surprised by the end of the quarter, which gets here always faster and sooner than we think.
Yeah.
And they didn't meet their goals and their targets, and it didn't happen.
And I think you've picked up on a key thing around metrics and looking at your metrics. So I used to call them management Mondays, money Mondays, whatever, a funny name, but nothing got booked on a Monday morning. Absolutely nothing got booked on a Monday morning. I've changed my cadence since, but I would come in and my Monday was all about the data and, what it looked like. And the reason I like Mondays is because, so the song I Don't Like Mondays, which I will not sing because I sing worse than you do, doesn't work in my world. I love Mondays for looking at these things, because on Monday, if you see something you don't like, you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to do something about it. On Friday, if you see something you don't like, you've got 2 days of walking in circles, worrying, pacing, and irritated. And you're going to ruin your time with your family, you're going to ruin your personal time, or you're going to end up working. So I like Monday, give yourself as much runway as you can to act on it, because the truth is anything that happens between Friday and Monday ain't really work related for most of us.
I love that. I love that. People talk a lot about SMART goals.
Yeah.
Right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Years ago, I had heard the acronym FAST. And the only thing that's different in those 2 acronyms when it comes to goals and objectives is the F. And the F is standing for frequently talked about, which is really important. So if you don't look at those things and you just put a SMART objective up, we're going to do this quarter, but you never look at it until the very, very end, don't be surprised if you don't know if you're on track or off track to hit that actual goal and objective. And so while we talk about goals and objectives, I know when we do strategic planning at the very beginning, we come back to the delegation, the accountability, the KPIs. You have to merge it all in together.
And I think in the market that we're in right now, we are in a very uncertain window of time. We are in a very turbulent window of time today. And I suspect a lot of the way that we're doing goals, what am I saying? I suspect, I know. The way that we're doing goals and planning is not going to work for businesses. And I think a lot of businesses have found that out in 2025, where we have these grand plans that we set up in October, November of 2024. And January hit, we got on the road, and then everything changed, right? And when it comes to goal setting, I think our goals today need to be more than a SMART goal. I think we need to start talking about SMART targets, right? This is the direction we're aiming the ship in. We are sailing for Japan. Along the way, there are going to be storms. So we may need to navigate around the storm. We may need to slow our speed and get through the storm. We may need to find safe harbor for a couple of months until the storm passes, but there are going to be storms between here and Japan. And we need to start approaching our goal planning that way, because so many times I find teams will set a goal and they start marching towards it, and then the unexpected happens, which is human beings act like human beings and they don't do what they're supposed to do. Our customers don't have a copy of our plan. Our customers, our prospects in our pipeline don't get a copy of our metrics. They don't get the, okay, so there are 10 of you in the pipeline. Now, 4 of you will progress to the next stage of the pipeline, which is a closed deal. We would love it if you could have a meeting amongst yourselves, determine which 4 those would be, and we'll see you in 27 days, because that's what our metric. It doesn't work that way, right? Sometimes you get 4 out of 10, sometimes you get 2 out of 10, and sometimes you get 7 out of 10 in the pipeline. These are averages. They're not exact. And so it's important, I think, to be prepared. Sales is easy because we all think pipeline, but in everything, be prepared for some storms. So we set a target, but that target, there needs to be a range of acceptability with the target, right? So I'm terrible with geography. We're sailing for Osaka, but if we end up in give me another Japanese city. Hawaii. No, Hawaii would not be good. If we're going to Japan
and you end up in Hawaii,
and we end up in Hawaii, we're not good. But if we're going to Osaka and we end up in Okinawa, the world does not end. It's not far from Okinawa to Osaka, right? We can be a little bit off target. My sailor dad is in his grave rolling at the idea that I would dare suggest that his compass could be that far off track. But yeah. We do need to set, I think, a more, I don't want to say a soft goal, but a more flexible target where we're aiming in a direction. We have a plan to get in that direction, but that plan includes, what are we going to do when we hit the storm? Because we don't know what kind of storm it's going to be. We don't know where along the path it's going to be. We don't know how intense it's going to be. And so that's where I think contingency planning comes in with goal setting, as well as scenario planning, right? Is accepting that we don't live in a world of absolutes, and we cannot, life is not a computer programmer. Life is not an algorithm. We can't simply apply a set of mathematical rules and then trust that everything's going to happen the way we applied the mathematical rules.
Yeah, without a doubt, and it's very interesting. I always have a good chuckle when people come to me and go, I want to make a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
The speed and pace of change, another thing when we're planning, really has an impact. Many businesses encountered changes with AI technology.
Yeah.
Chat GPT and everything when it came out in 2023. And you couldn't have really planned for that 4 months earlier, 6 months earlier. You were likely not aware of it, most businesses.
Yeah.
Unless you were in the space and in the know. And so those disruptive pieces that you're talking about, those storms, sometimes you can plan, you can do risk reduction. You can talk about, well, the what if scenarios. And other times it's not going to work.
Which is a great segue to the last thing I wanted to talk about. And we are pretty much at time, so we aren't going to have a lot of time to dive into this, but we are talking, our strategic planning workshops. So when I'm working with a client, I do like to set up a series or a cadence of check-ins with that client in terms of checking in with their team and revisiting their strategic plan. And there is a reason that if you look at any business operating system, I don't care what one you look at, every single one has a cadence of weekly conversations you need to have as a leader, monthly conversations you need to have as a leader, quarterly conversations you need to have as a leader, and then annual. Quarterly is where I diverge a little bit from the traditional, right? So a lot of operating systems are going to say, quarterly, we're going to go in and we're going to look at, are we on track to meet our targets? And if we're not on track to meet our targets, what are we going to do to fix that? The first question I like to ask is, does the target still make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? What's true? What's changed? What's true today that wasn't true when we set that target? What's true today that wasn't true when we met for our last quarterly meeting? What did we assume was true when we set this goal that isn't actually true today? And so in my book, I call this the Foresight Flywheel, and a process of just scanning the horizon. But it's important to stop and take a look. And if you think about companies that are really innovative, the thing that they do that's a little bit different than most of the rest of us is that they have this embedded in their culture. They're constantly scanning for signals in terms of what's going on. It may not be in, the same very structured way, but they're scanning. They see something change, they act on it. By the time the rest of the world catches up, they're in with a solution, right? And so in our quarterlies, especially in times like we're in, we need to be engaging this, and it doesn't have to be long. Becomes a part of your culture. You spend 10 minutes in the quarterly meeting and you say, okay, before we kick into kind of all the data, what's going on? What's changed? What's true? What's not? And let's have the rest of the conversation in the context of that. And so when you do that, I think you start to think about, well, this target doesn't make sense. For example, maybe you thought you were going to grow by 20% this year, and it's Q2 and you've grown by 17%. Something in your assumptions about the market is different. If you still target 20% growth, your whole team is going to take a holiday from about September on because you're going to hit the target. So you might want to move the goalpost, or maybe you just had a lot in the pipeline that was closer to close than you think, and you've actually got an empty pipeline and they're all, so there's importance around that.
And before you go on to the annual and
I'm not even going to talk about the annual because we're going to talk about that on another day.
Oh, we are, and I know that we're coming up to time. The other thing that I like to look at, and maybe you do too, so I'm curious, cadence, right? I find that it's situational in some respects. So you just had the example of your target was 20%, but you come in at the quarter, you've already made 17%. So clearly you're growing at a different pace than you originally were when you made the target. And sometimes that, as a hyper growth scenario, means that your cadence might need to change for your meetings. And so there's different pieces that come into play to pick the right cadence, for most people, right? Weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. But what you do in those meetings and those cadence pieces might be different depending on the stage of growth or what's happening in the macroeconomic world.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to see if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah. Lots. Nothing that I can do in about 60 seconds, but I definitely agree. I mean, there are times where if you are hyper growth or your business is having a, let's call it a rough patch of seas, you might want to, I'm never a fan of looking at things more than weekly, because if you're looking at them more than weekly, you are obsessing and you're not acting. But there are times when you may want to, say, increase the number of times that you're meeting with your ads planner, your Google Ads team. I'm going to pick on marketing again. So if you're meeting with your Google Ads team on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and things go crazy in the market, you might want to check in with them a little more often, right? So your fractional COO, you might meet with them. How often would you want to meet with a client as a fractional COO?
Well, as a fractional COO, it's weekly.
Yeah.
Because we have the pulse, we want to have those conversations, the deeper strategic conversations. But if we're doing advisory services, it's a different cadence, because we're not embedded in the organization. So there's different pieces depending on what you're doing. It's situational. So I know we're at time.
We are.
We have a very cool guest coming in tomorrow. I'm always very excited to talk AI automation because it feeds into my theme of operational efficiency. And I know you have done so much with AI and automation as well.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited tomorrow because what we're going to talk about is very cool. Just an amazing expert on the topic. So I'm pretty excited to bring can we say his name? Bring John on?
Bring John. I think we can.
Pretty excited about that conversation. The other thing that we have for you tomorrow is Susan and I are going to tell you a little bit more about something we've been cooking up from you. Some of you have been reaching out and asking about, what are the ways that you can get some support with your strategic planning. Sure. So we have something pretty cool to tell you about tomorrow as well that we have been cooking up. So with that, I hope to see you tomorrow and have a great day today.